Here on home waters, Tom Slingsby works his magic. Hocus pocus, Australia takes the win in Sydney.
Oh, finally. Pass, mate.
Yeah. Nice work.
That was not pretty.
Yeah, so it's good to be back on home waters on Sydney Harbour. We knew the forecast was good and we're really hoping we're going to get some good breeze for the weekend, and sure enough, Sydney produced.
We were definitely looking forward to getting to some, stronger wind, some good foiling, 6-up sailing.
It's been a great season for Team Australia, but we hadn't managed to get the win. And we had 7 podiums and without a win, and so it was a little frustrating, but I hate sort of complaining that we were ahead on the table and we were frustrated with our season so far because we were sailing really well, we just hadn't managed to get the win.
We got to sail better. Holy
Yeah, well, obviously we couldn't sail Friday with the windy conditions, and I actually think that suited us. It gave the guys a time just to have some rest. I've all pretty hectic with different projects, and as a team with sort of our experience, not having the practice, there's obviously things we want to work on, but there's probably the other teams have a few more things as well. So I think it worked into our favour.
Heading into the final race, I said, okay, we're ending up late to the start each time. We've got to make sure we're not late. I'm not going to be tacking behind everyone and pushing, I'm going to be leading them back. I didn't really realise, but it seems the other teams probably had a similar plan, that they didn't want to be late, they wanted to be early.
The start in itself was really strange. We haven't really seen one like this, and the reason it was unique was we had 2 OCS boats and 1 late starter. I guess the key situation that you might see was we have New Zealand who were down to leeward and separated, which is a good position to be in. And you saw, Australia here and Denmark above us in our own little private battle going on. And what actually ended up happening was on a start line, so we're going to go off the line here to the reach mark, and if you get around the reach mark in first, generally you're going to win the race. So the start is really everything. But what you don't see is there's these imaginary lines called ley lines here and here, and these lines essentially say where you got to be above or below to start. So for an example, if you were below this pin and ley line down here, you could not actually get high enough to actually start. And vice versa, if you're above this, you are at risk of getting blocked out by a boat, or the right-of-way boat below you to push you above. And that's what essentially happened is we were in a pretty good spot down here defending our position. The Kiwis went down, then we went up to chase Denmark, and we're above the boat lay, so we put ourselves in trouble up here. And it wasn't until we couldn't wipe the speed off with about 10 seconds to go that we thought, we're in trouble here.
We ended up holding Denmark out. It wasn't a planned attack in any way. And then New Zealand were coming up. It was a big mistake from New Zealand. It was just them and the line, but I guess they didn't realise that we were in so much trouble up here with a lot of time to kill, and it was a pretty big unforced error by New Zealand. They had that start, and they should have been able to capitalise.
Thankfully, Denmark was the most in trouble, but the Kiwis were coming up at us with speed and were going to block us out. But fortunately for us, and unfortunately for the New Zealand team, is they started early, and so did we, to make sure that we started in time. So we were OCS'd both boats, meaning we have to get behind the boat that starts last, which was Denmark.
It was almost lucky the Kiwis didn't put the protest flag up, but obviously both OCS, which was the key error, which really opened it up for Denmark to really set themselves up for a good reach 1 and have a good exit out of Mark 1.
We had to eventually, as Denmark comes through, we have to both drop behind them, and then the race is on.
Australia are clear, they're out behind now. New Zealand are clear, we're up and racing with 3 boats as they come into Mark 1.
You're almost wishing and pleading that the teams behind you will hurry up and get past you, because as soon as they pass your line here and this line is broken and you're behind it, the game's on. Race is on. Go.
Denmark went through, we went high, and New Zealand went low again, kind of the same as in the pre-start. For me, it's a stronger position to be this high boat because it's quite easy to bear away and get on their stern. Whereas down here with a turn up, it's very hard to judge your boat speed versus their boat speed and the angle to the mark. And so we were able to sort of get a little bit closer to Denmark at Mark 1, and New Zealand sort of had to follow us and they had an overlap on the mark. We gave them a little bit of room, but we were able to roll over pretty quick out of Mark 1. So small advantage to us over New Zealand, but we still had to overcome Denmark.
Once the start got sorted out, it was pretty clear Denmark was in first place around Mark 1, followed by Australia and New Zealand. So the next move was, how do we get past Denmark to win?
Can there be some overtaking, or can the Great Dane run away from the Kiwis and the Aussies?
So coming into the bottom mark, Denmark picked a very nice ley line for a left-hand turn, which was probably, in general, the higher percentage move at the bottom gate. We also had the option for a left turn. We were sort of following them, and New Zealand was slightly above us. The question for us becomes then, do we sort of defend against New Zealand, or do we sort of follow and do the simple manoeuvre behind Denmark?
What does it say? Left 20. Ink, lead the Kiwis, eh?
Now, what we want to do is we don't want to follow them around the course, because when you follow someone, it's really hard to pass. So what we're looking is to create leverage, get separation, get away from them to find a boat speed advantage or some different wind patterns in the race. So pretty quickly, we said, all right, we need to find a separation here. Denmark looks like they're doing a left turn here. Stand by for a right turn. We call this move in our playbook the nympho. So Denmark goes left turn at the bottom, and we did the nympho jibe round up. So this maneuver is quite hard, and the reason is you're doing a 180-degree turn from downwind all the way onto an upwind angle. And that's just quite tough with, you know, the ride height, the settings, the people moving across the boat with all the G-forces, hitting your exit angles, even seeing the marks because we're on the other side is really tough. So even it might sound simple, yeah, we'll just separate, but we're being forced to make the hard maneuver and putting a lot of risk to enforce this split.
What this ended up doing for us was it gave us a split from Denmark, which is much harder for them to cover us, and it also covered third place.
Why would you risk so early in the race? But the reality is the races aren't that long. I mean, we're talking about a 10-minute race here to win an event. We've noticed that on this northern port boundary on the upwinds, there seemed to be better pressure all day. So we thought, why not get there first and try see if we can do an attack move on the upwind.
It's going to be tight here. Tom's looking to set up for the left turn. The left turn's been favoured here. Watch for the Aussies to sling inside.
This is coming up to the first top mark. We went behind by a couple of lengths.
We had the choice to maybe duck or even cross and go to this other mark. But the problem being is that we just made such gains on this left side. We wanted to get back here as quick as possible for the downwind. It forces us to do this really tough tack bearway maneuver. You know, the maneuver is hard enough in itself, but add, you know, the timing to position it right under Denmark was really tricky.
When we get our bow into this circle, we have all rights on this boat. If we're outside here, Denmark has all rights on us. We were just okay where our bow intersected just at the circle at about 1 second before they got to us. So we now have all the rights. They have to give us room to keep clear around the mark, and that was the way we're able to overtake Denmark at the top mark of the final. Denmark's move here it's a tough one. I don't know how much he could have defended it, but one lap later we saw them have a pretty similar opportunity, and they weren't quite able to do what we were able to do.
Serhested might have the opportunity to do exactly what Tom Slingsby did to him.
We had a really close battle with Denmark for the rest of the race. The roles were completely reversed. We were now the boat out here, tacking on a ley line. They were now the boat on the inside.
This is where it gets really tricky, because we only have one marked around at this point. Really have to do a left turn up the top here. And we know this side's strong, but Denmark got on the left-hand side of us, and we knew that there was going to be a problem on the way back. But what do you do here? You know, you're in the lead, you're not laying port. Do you do 2-3 tacks in a round, and compared to their one tack? You know, that loss tack, that was a really tough decision for Tom to actually make at that particular call. It's all about who's on the inside here. Boat coming in here for a left-hand turn has all the power. So if you're the right-hand boat here on this starboard side, you just got to make sure you can cross them. And thankfully, we just did.
Is Denmark going to try and sling it inside? No, he's not. He deems Australia to be too far ahead. Big advantage to the Australians as Nikolai Serhested chooses to follow. He yields.
Okay, we're gonna have to follow. Copy, we have to follow. There's no right turn option in this finish. Stay by. You know, and board. Risk it, right?
You know, were they happy at that point with the second? I don't know. You know, a really tough decision there at the end of the race where it could go horribly wrong for him, I guess, and the Kiwis were getting closer.
Now the question is, if you watch on the replay, could Nikolai have tacked underneath us and won the race? I think if you ask a few people around the paddock, they would have probably said yes. But yeah, that was a really tough decision. Probably the toughest decision of the race was there.
I'll sell it. Solid event, guys. Yeah, we'll take second. Take it. We'll take it. We wanted to win, but we'll take it.
That's where a balance between being sensible and aggressive is really interesting, because perhaps Nikolai could have gone in there really aggressive, tried to lead around and maybe won that regatta, but there could have been like contact between us and him, or the mark even, which is then season points.
If they want to win these big events, they might need to take a little bit more risk, and Nikolai is generally conservative, but he's conservative because he's trying to make the final in the grand final in San Francisco. In one regard, he's playing it very smart. In the other regard, if he wants to win these events, I think he's going to have to push it a little bit more.
We'll take it. Take it. Nice fighting. Weren't meant to win one yet.
Here on home waters, Tom Slingsby works his magic. Hocus pocus. Australia takes the win in Sydney.
Oh, finally. Jeez. Pass, mate.
Yes, nice work.
That was not pretty.
Man, like the one word to describe that feeling was just relief. I think we're just so happy that we'd actually won an event. Even though we're leading the season by, you know, good handful of points, it wasn't about that. It was about knowing we could execute under pressure on the day.
We've been in the finals a lot this year, you know, consistently, and we really had to make one stick. That was definitely going into Sydney, our focus, that we wanted to come away with a win. You know, second wasn't going to cut it really. So, you know, our mentality was definitely all or nothing.
It was unbelievable for us to win at home, unbelievable experience, and often we've won events overseas and you do your national anthem, and the only people singing the national anthem are the 6 Aussies on stage, but out there we had 1,200 people joining in the national anthem with us. It was incredibly humbling moment, and it's something I'll remember forever. I've won a lot of sailing events, but generally they're over in other countries, and to do it in Australia, and it's a very cool thing to be a part of.